What I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core. After 2 weeks away on business, I walked into my apartment expecting a warm welcome from my girlfriend, Sarah. Instead, I found her 6 months pregnant. 6 months. The math was impossible. We'd been trying for a baby for over a year with no luck, and I'd only been gone 14 days. My world shattered in that moment. But what I discovered next changed everything I thought I knew about love, sacrifice, and what it really means to build a family together. The Chicago skyline looked different somehow as my plane descended into O'Hare that Friday evening in November. Maybe it was just the exhaustion from 2 weeks of back-to-back meetings in Silicon Valley, or maybe it was the anticipation of seeing Sarah again. We'd been together for 3 years, and even though we talked every day while I was away, nothing compared to holding her in my arms. The Uber ride to our Lincoln Park apartment felt longer than usual. The driver was playing some melancholy jazz that matched the gray November sky, and I found myself thinking about the conversation Sarah and I had been having more frequently lately, about marriage, about kids, about our future together. We'd been actively trying to start a family for over a year, visiting specialists, tracking cycles, doing everything the doctors recommended. Month after month, the pregnancy tests came back negative. It had started to strain us both, though we tried not to let it show. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs to our apartment, my carry-on bumping against each step. The familiar scent of Sarah's vanilla candles drifted through the door before I even opened it. Home. I fumbled with my keys, eager to surprise her. We'd planned for me to arrive Sunday, but I'd managed to catch an earlier flight. "Sarah, baby, I'm home," I called out as I pushed open the door. The apartment was dimly lit, just the soft glow from the kitchen. I could hear the shower running down the hall. I dropped my bags by the door and headed toward the bathroom to surprise her. That's when I saw them, prenatal vitamins on the kitchen counter. My heart skipped, but I rationalized it quickly. Sarah had been taking those for months as part of our fertility journey. The doctor had recommended them even before conception. But then I saw the ultrasound photos, 3 black and white images scattered next to the vitamin bottle. My hand shook as I picked them up. The date stamp read 2 days ago. The measurements on the side indicated 24 weeks. 24 weeks. I stared at the images, trying to process what I was seeing. The baby was clearly developed. I could make out tiny fingers, the curve of a spine, the round shape of a head. The shower stopped running. I stood frozen in the kitchen, ultrasound photos in my trembling hands, doing math that didn't add up. 24 weeks ago, I was here. We were here together. But the timing, something felt wrong about the timing. Sarah had been acting strange in our phone calls the past few weeks. Now that I thought about it, distant, nervous when I asked about her day. "Jake?" Sarah's voice came from the hallway, surprised and uncertain. I turned around as she emerged from the bathroom in her robe, her dark hair damp and curling around her shoulders. And that's when I saw it, the unmistakable curve of her belly beneath the terry cloth. 6 months pregnant. Clearly, obviously 6 months pregnant. My throat went dry. The ultrasound photos slipped from my fingers and scattered across the hardwood floor. "Sarah." My voice came out as a whisper. "You're pregnant." She wrapped her arms around her middle, protective, defensive. Tears were already forming in her green eyes. "Jake, I can explain." "Explain what?" The words came out harsher than I intended. "Explain how you're 6 months pregnant when we've been trying for over a year? Explain how you didn't tell me? Explain how this is even possible?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Outside, I could hear the distant sound of Friday night traffic, people heading out for dinner, for drinks, for normal evenings with their normal lives. Inside our apartment, my entire world was crumbling. "Please sit down," Sarah said softly, moving toward the couch. "I don't want to sit down. I want you to tell me whose baby that is." The words hung in the air like an accusation, ugly and raw. Sarah's face crumpled. She sank onto the couch, one hand on her belly, the other covering her eyes. "It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is." I was pacing now, running my hands through my hair. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you cheated on me, got pregnant, and hid it for 6 months while I was traveling for work. killing myself to build a future for us. I didn't cheat on you." Her voice was barely audible. "Then how do you explain this?" I gestured toward her obvious pregnancy. "How do you explain hiding this from me? How do you explain letting me believe we couldn't have children when you're clearly 6 months along?" The tears were flowing freely now. Sarah looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Guilt, fear, and something else I couldn't identify. I was scared. Scared of what? Scared of telling me I'm going to be a father. Scared of sharing what should be the happiest moment of our lives. Scared you'd leave me. Those 4 words hit me like a physical blow. I stopped pacing and stared at her. In 3 years together, through job losses, family drama, fertility struggles, and long business trips, leaving had never occurred to me. We were partners. We were building something together. "Why would I leave you for being pregnant? That's all we've wanted." Sarah's shoulders shook with silent sobs. She looked so small on our big sectional sofa, drowning in her white robe, her hand protective over the life growing inside her. "Because it's not yours." The apartment went completely silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of our neighbor's television through the thin walls. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. All the air left the room. "What did you say?" "It's not yours, Jake." She looked up at me with eyes red from crying. "The baby isn't yours." I sat down hard in the armchair across from her, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. Everything I thought I knew about my life, about our relationship, about the past 6 months, rearranged itself in my mind. "Whose is it?" "I can't tell you that right now." "You can't tell me?" My voice was rising again. "Sarah, you've been lying to me for 6 months. You've been pregnant with another man's child while I held your hand through negative pregnancy test after negative pregnancy test. While I researched fertility specialists and spent thousands of dollars on treatments. While I worked overtime to save money for the family we were supposedly trying to build together. Please let me explain." "Then explain." I stood up, frustrated beyond measure. "Explain how the woman I love, the woman I was planning to propose to, explain how she's been carrying another man's baby while looking me in the eye every day and pretending we're in this together." Sarah wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her robe. "I was going to tell you. When you went into labor? When I was cutting the umbilical cord of a child that isn't mine? I was waiting for the right time." "The right time?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The right time was 6 months ago when you first found out. The right time was when you had the first ultrasound. The right time was any of the 100 conversations we've had about wanting children." I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair. I needed air, I needed space. I needed to be anywhere but in this apartment with its vanilla candles and prenatal vitamins, and the woman I thought I knew carrying a secret that had just destroyed everything. "Where are you going?" Sarah asked, panic creeping into her voice. "I don't know." I headed toward the door. "But I can't be here right now." "Jake, please don't go. Let me explain everything." I stopped with my hand on the doorknob and looked back at her. She looked so vulnerable, so scared, cradling her belly with both hands now. Despite my anger, despite feeling betrayed and confused and hurt beyond measure, I still loved her. That was the worst part. Even in this moment, even with this revelation, I still loved her. "I need time to think," I said quietly. "I need to understand what just happened to my life. Will you come back?" I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The fluorescent light was harsh after the soft lighting of our apartment. I don't know. I drove aimlessly through Chicago for hours that night, the city lights blurring together as I tried to process what had just happened. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. "It's not yours." 3 simple words that had shattered 3 years of what I thought was a solid relationship. I ended up at Danny's, my best friend since college who lived in a studio apartment in Wicker Park. He took one look at my face when he opened the door and immediately went to his fridge for 2 beers. "What happened?" Danny asked as we sat on his small balcony overlooking the street below. I told him everything. The surprise homecoming, the ultrasound photos, Sarah's pregnancy, her confession that the baby wasn't mine. Danny listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head or muttering under his breath. "Man, I'm sorry," he said when I finished. "That's brutal. Do you think she was having an affair this whole time?" I don't know what to think. I stared at the beer bottle in my hands. She said she was scared I'd leave her, but that doesn't make sense. Why would she be scared unless she did something wrong? Maybe the baby's father isn't in the picture. Maybe it was a one-time thing and she didn't know how to tell you. But we were trying to have a baby together. If she got pregnant, even if it was complicated, why wouldn't she tell me? Why let me think I was infertile? Why keep going through all those medical appointments and treatments? Danny didn't have answers, and honestly, I didn't expect him to. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching people walk by on the street below. Young couples holding hands, groups of friends heading out for the night, everyone living their normal lives while mine fell apart. I slept on Danny's couch that night, staring at the ceiling and replaying every conversation Sarah and I had over the past 6 months. Looking for clues I'd missed, signs that she was hiding something this massive. Had she been different when we video called while I was traveling? Had her voice sounded strained when I talked about missing her, about coming home to start our family? Saturday morning, I woke up with a plan. I needed information before I could decide what to do next. I needed to understand what had really happened. I drove to Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where Sarah had been going for our fertility treatments. Dr. Patricia Chen had been our reproductive endocrinologist for the past 8 months. She was professional, compassionate, and had become familiar with our case. Mr. Thompson. Dr. Chen looked surprised when I walked into her office. Is everything all right? Your appointment isn't until next week. I need to ask you about Sarah, I said, sitting across from her desk. She's pregnant. Dr. Chen's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. I can't discuss another patient's medical information without their consent. You know that. She's 6 months pregnant, Dr. Chen. 6 months. We've been coming here for 8 months trying to conceive, and she's been pregnant for 6 of them. The doctor was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words carefully. What exactly are you asking me? I'm asking if you knew. I'm asking if Sarah has been coming to appointments, letting you run tests and prescribe treatments, while she was already pregnant. Jake, I understand you're upset, but I really cannot share specifics about Sarah's medical care without her written permission. Then I'm asking you to get her permission. Call her. Ask her to come in. Ask her to authorize you to speak with me about what's been going on. Dr. Chen studied my face. There seems to be some confusion here. Let me see what I can do. 20 minutes later, Sarah walked into Dr. Chen's office. She looked like she hadn't slept, her eyes puffy and red. She wore a loose sweater that couldn't hide her pregnancy now that I knew to look for it. Sarah, Dr. Chen said gently, Jake has some questions about your pregnancy. Are you comfortable discussing this together? Sarah sat down in the chair next to mine but didn't look at me. Yes. How long have you known you were pregnant? I asked. Since June, she said quietly. June, I calculated in my head. That's 6 months ago. You've known for 6 months. Yes. And you continued coming to fertility appointments? You let Dr. Chen run tests and prescribe treatments while you were already pregnant? Sarah finally looked at me, tears threatening again. I only came to 2 more appointments after I found out. I was trying to figure out what to do. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. I should clarify something. Sarah stopped coming to appointments in July. She called and said she needed to take a break from treatment for personal reasons. But you kept going to appointments, Sarah said to me. You went to your follow-up in August while you were in town between trips. She was right. I had continued with my part of the fertility testing even when Sarah said she needed a break. I thought it was because the constant disappointment was getting to her emotionally. Sarah, Dr. Chen said gently, perhaps you should explain the full situation to Jake. Sarah took a shaky breath. The baby is yours. I stared at her. What? The baby is yours, Jake. It's ours. But you said it wasn't. Last night you told me it wasn't mine. I said it wasn't yours because... She paused, struggling with the words. Because I was terrified you'd be angry about how it happened. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Sarah, do you want me to explain? Sarah nodded, looking down at her hands folded in her lap. Jake, Dr. Chen said, do you remember your appointment in May, when we discussed the possibility of intrauterine insemination? IUI, yes, but we decided to try naturally for a few more months first. That's correct. But Sarah came back the following week and asked if we could proceed with the IUI without telling you immediately. She wanted it to be a surprise if it worked. My head was spinning. Sarah, what are you talking about? Sarah finally looked up at me. I knew how discouraged you were getting. Every negative test was breaking your heart, and I could see how much you blamed yourself, even though the doctor said it wasn't anyone's fault. I thought if I could get pregnant and surprise you, if I could give you the baby we both wanted so desperately, it would be worth the secrecy. You got IUI without telling me. I used the sperm sample you provided for testing in April. Dr. Chen had frozen a portion for future analysis. Dr. Chen nodded. It's not uncommon for couples to have different comfort levels with timing for assisted reproductive technologies. Sarah was very clear that she wanted to surprise you with a pregnancy rather than add pressure to the process. But why didn't you tell me when it worked? Why let me think you weren't pregnant all these months? Sarah's voice broke. Because I was scared you'd be angry that I went behind your back. And then as time went on, it got harder and harder to explain. I kept thinking I'd tell you next week, next month, but I was terrified you'd see it as a betrayal. I sat back in my chair, trying to process this information. So the baby is mine? Yes, Sarah whispered. It's ours. It's the baby we've been praying for. And you've been pregnant for 6 months while I thought we were still failing to conceive. I know it was wrong. I know I should have told you immediately. But Jake, I was so happy when the test came back positive, and I wanted to see that joy on your face instead of worry about how it happened. Dr. Chen stood up. I'll give you two some privacy to discuss this. Sarah, your next appointment is Thursday if you'd like Jake to join you. After she left, Sarah and I sat in silence in the small office. Outside the window, I could see Lake Michigan stretching to the horizon, gray and choppy under the November sky. I need you to understand something, I said finally. It's not about how the baby was conceived. If you had told me you wanted to try IUI, I would have been supportive. I know that now. It's about the lying. It's about the 6 months of letting me believe I was the problem. It's about you being pregnant with our child while I blamed myself for our infertility. I'm so sorry, Jake. Are you? Or are you sorry you got caught? Sarah reached for my hand. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I made such a mess of what should have been the happiest time in our lives. I looked down at her hand on mine. Her engagement ring finger was bare, as it had been for 3 years. I'd been planning to propose after the holidays, once we hopefully had good news about starting our family. Is the baby healthy? I asked. Yes. Everything looks perfect. We're having a boy. A son. I was going to be a father to a son. The reality was starting to sink in, cutting through the anger and confusion. I want to see the ultrasound reports, I said. I want to understand everything I've missed. Okay. And Sarah? No more secrets. No more protecting me from information about my own child. No more secrets, she agreed. As we walked out of the hospital together, I realized this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning that had started 6 months ago without my knowledge. Now I had to decide if I could forgive the woman I loved for trying to give me everything I wanted in the worst possible way. The next few weeks were the most difficult of our relationship. Sarah moved into the spare bedroom, giving us both space while we figured out how to move forward. I threw myself into preparing for fatherhood, reading everything I could about pregnancy, childbirth, and raising sons. It was easier to focus on the practical aspects than to deal with the emotional wreckage of feeling betrayed by the person I trusted most. I went with Sarah to her next doctor's appointment. Sitting in that examination room, seeing our son moving around on the ultrasound screen, hearing his heartbeat fill the small space, it was overwhelming. This was my child, the baby we'd dreamed about for so long. But I'd missed 6 months of his development because of Sarah's misguided attempt to protect me. Everything looks excellent, Dr. Martinez, Sarah's obstetrician, said, as she moved the ultrasound wand across Sarah's belly. Baby's measuring right on track. Heartbeat is strong. All the organs look great. What about the birth? What should we expect? I asked. Well, you're looking at a late February due date, probably around the 24th. Have you two discussed birth preferences? Natural delivery, epidural, birthing center versus hospital? I looked at Sarah. We should have been having these conversations months ago. We haven't really talked about it yet, Sarah said quietly. After the appointment, we sat in my car in the hospital parking lot. I watched other couples walking in and out of the building, some of them clearly pregnant, others holding newborns, all of them sharing moments that Sarah and I had missed. I signed us up for birthing classes, Sarah said. They start next week if you want to come. Of course I want to come. This is my son too. I know. I'm sorry you missed so much. I started the engine but didn't put the car in drive yet. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Why were you really scared to tell me? Was it just about going behind my back for the IUI? Or was there something else? She was quiet for a long time, staring out the passenger window at the gray December afternoon. Do you remember my sister Kate? Of course. Kate was 2 years older than Sarah, lived in Portland, and they'd had a complicated relationship since childhood. When Kate got pregnant with Emma, her boyfriend Dave left. Just packed up and disappeared one day when she was 7 months along. Okay, but what does that have to do with us? Kate had hidden the pregnancy from Dave for months too. She found out early but waited to tell him because she knew he wasn't ready to be a father. When she finally told him, he felt trapped and betrayed and left. I turned to look at Sarah. You thought I'd leave you? I thought if you found out I'd gotten pregnant through IUI without discussing it with you first, you'd see it as manipulation, like I was forcing you into fatherhood. But we'd been trying to have a baby for over a year. We both wanted this. I know that logically. But fear isn't logical, Jake. Watching my sister raise Emma alone, seeing how much Dave's abandonment devastated her, I was terrified of taking any risk that might push you away. I reached over and took her hand. I'm not Dave and you're not Kate, we're not them. I know that now, but when you're scared, you don't always make the best decisions. No, you don't. I squeezed her hand. But Sarah, keeping secrets from me isn't protecting our relationship. It's damaging it. I understand that now. We drove home in comfortable silence for the first time in weeks. That evening, Sarah made dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread. And we ate at our small dining table like we used to before I knew about the pregnancy. I bought some baby books, I said as I helped clear the dishes. What kind of baby books? Everything. What to expect during the first year, sleep training, feeding, developmental milestones. I have a lot of catching up to do. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her since I'd been home. I've been reading those too. There's so much to learn. We'll learn together. Over the following weeks, we attended birthing classes every Tuesday night. I learned about labor stages, breathing techniques, and how to be a supportive partner during delivery. The other couples in the class had been preparing together for months, sharing the excitement and nervousness of expecting their first child. Sarah and I were playing catch-up, but we were playing it together. I started talking to the baby every night before bed. Sarah would lie on her back on the couch, and I'd put my hand on her belly and tell our son about my day, about the nursery I was preparing for him, about how excited I was to meet him. Sometimes he'd kick, a strong little foot pushing against my palm, and I'd feel that overwhelming rush of love and protectiveness that I imagined all fathers felt. He's very active tonight, Sarah said one evening in mid-January, as the baby seemed to be doing gymnastics in her belly. Maybe he's excited about the crib being delivered tomorrow, I said, rubbing small circles on her stomach. Jake? Yeah? Are we going to be okay? I looked up at her face. In the soft lighting of our living room, she looked young and vulnerable and beautiful. I think so. I hope so. I love you. I love you too. And I meant it. Despite everything, despite the hurt and confusion and lost time, I loved her. 2 weeks later, on a cold Thursday night, Sarah woke me up at 2 a.m. Jake, she said, shaking my shoulder. I think it's time. I sat up immediately, instantly awake. Time like time? My water broke an hour ago and the contractions are getting stronger. We'd practiced this moment in birthing class, but the reality was different. Sarah was calm and focused while I fumbled around looking for the hospital bag we'd packed weeks earlier. "Did you call Dr. Martinez?" I asked as I helped Sarah into her coat. "She's meeting us at the hospital." The drive to Northwestern Memorial felt surreal. Chicago was quiet at 3 a.m., just a few cars on the normally busy streets. Sarah breathed through contractions in the passenger seat, gripping my hand during the stronger ones. "You're doing great," I told her. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Me too, but we're doing this together." At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Sarah was admitted, moved to a delivery room, and within an hour she was in active labor. I stayed by her side, holding her hand, helping her breathe through contractions, wiping her forehead with cool washcloths. "You're at 10 centimeters, Dr. Martinez announced around 6 a.m. "It's time to push." What happened next was the most incredible, terrifying, beautiful experience of my life. Sarah pushed with strength I didn't know she possessed, and I coached her through each contraction, telling her how amazing she was, how proud I was of her, how close we were to meeting our son. At 6:47 a.m. on February 15th, our son was born. "Here he is," Dr. Martinez said, lifting a squirming, crying baby and placing him on Sarah's chest. "Congratulations, Mom and Dad." I stared at this tiny person, covered in vernix and blood, his eyes squeezed shut as he cried his arrival into the world. He was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a shock of dark hair, and the strongest grip I'd ever felt when he wrapped his tiny hand around my finger. "Hi, baby boy," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Hi, sweetheart." I leaned down and kissed Sarah's forehead, then gently touched our son's cheek. "Welcome to the world, little man." Later, after he'd been weighed and measured and cleaned up, I held him while Sarah rested. He was so small, maybe 6.5 pounds, but he felt substantial in my arms. Real, mine. "What are we going to name him?" I asked Sarah. "I was thinking about William," she said. "After your grandfather." "William Thompson." I looked down at the baby in my arms. "What do you think, Will? Do you like that name?" He opened his eyes for just a moment, dark blue and unfocused, before closing them again and settling more comfortably against my chest. "I think he approves," Sarah said with a smile. Sitting in that hospital room holding my son while Sarah slept, I realized that forgiveness wasn't a decision I'd made consciously. It had happened gradually, through birthing classes and doctor appointments and late-night conversations about our fears and hopes. Sarah had made a mistake born out of love and fear, and while it had caused pain, it had also given us this perfect little boy. We weren't the same couple we'd been before. We'd been tested in a way I never expected, and we'd come through it changed but stronger, more honest with each other, more aware of how fear could drive us to make poor choices, more committed to facing challenges together instead of trying to protect each other from difficult truths. As William slept in my arms and Sarah dozed in her hospital bed, I thought about the proposal ring hidden in my sock drawer at home. When Sarah was ready, when we'd fully healed from this experience, I was going to ask her to marry me. Not because she was the mother of my child, but because she was the woman I wanted to build a life with, through all the messy, complicated, beautiful challenges that life would bring us. 6 weeks after William's birth, we were finally finding our rhythm as new parents. The sleepless nights, the endless diaper changes, the sweet moments of quiet bonding. It was everything we'd imagined and nothing like we'd expected. William was a good baby, generally content and healthy, with Sarah's green eyes and what appeared to be my stubborn chin. I'd taken paternity leave from work, something I'd never imagined doing before becoming a father. Those early weeks of caring for William together, learning his cries and his preferences, watching Sarah become an incredible mother, it cemented something between us that all the conversations and apologies couldn't have achieved on their own. "He's getting so big," Sarah said one evening as she nursed William in the rocking chair we'd placed by the window in his nursery. The March light was soft and golden, highlighting the contentment on her face. "Dr. Peterson said he's in the 75th percentile for weight gain," I said from where I sat on the floor, folding tiny onesies and sleepers. "We're definitely doing something right." "We make a good team," Sarah said quietly. Yeah, we do. It was true. Despite everything we'd been through, despite the rocky start to this journey, we worked well together as parents. We communicated about William's needs, took turns with night feedings, supported each other through the exhaustion and overwhelming love that came with caring for a newborn. But there was still something unfinished between us. Something that needed to be addressed before we could fully move forward. "Sarah," I said, setting down the basket of baby clothes, "I want to ask you something." "Okay. Do you trust me?" She looked up from William, who had fallen asleep at her breast, tiny fist curled against her chest. "Of course I trust you." "Then why didn't you trust me with the truth about the IUI? Why didn't you trust me to handle knowing you were pregnant?" She was quiet for a long time, gently adjusting William's position. "I think I was so focused on protecting you from disappointment that I forgot you're strong enough to handle difficult things. I am strong enough. We're strong enough. Together. I know that now. Do you? Because, Sarah, we're going to face a lot of challenges raising William. He's going to get sick. He's going to struggle with things. He's going to make mistakes as he grows up. We can't protect each other from every difficult moment of parenting." "You're right." I stood up and moved to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where we'd hopefully raise our son. "I need to know that you won't keep important things from me anymore, even if you think you're protecting me. I won't, I promise. And I need to know that when you're scared or overwhelmed, you'll talk to me about it instead of trying to handle everything alone." Sarah carefully stood up and moved William to his crib, covering him with the soft blue blanket her mother had knitted. He settled with a small sigh, completely peaceful in sleep. "Jake, I need to tell you something else." My heart skipped. "What?" "I've been thinking about this a lot, about why I was really so scared to tell you about the pregnancy. And I think part of it was that I was scared of being happy. Does that make sense?" I turned from the window to face her. "Not really. We'd been disappointed so many times. Every negative pregnancy test, every failed cycle, every friend's pregnancy announcement that wasn't ours. I think I got used to expecting disappointment. So when you finally got pregnant, I was terrified that if I let myself be completely happy, if I shared that happiness with you, something would go wrong. Like the universe would punish us for celebrating too early. I understood then, in a way I hadn't before. So keeping it secret felt safer. Yes, if something happened to the baby, if I miscarried or there were complications, only I would be devastated. I could protect you from that pain. But Sarah, don't you see? By protecting me from potential pain, you also kept me from months of joy. I missed feeling him kick for the first time, missed seeing your belly grow, missed the excitement of knowing we were finally having the baby we dreamed about." Tears started flowing down her cheeks. "I stole that from you. You stole it from both of us." I moved to her then, pulling her into my arms. She cried against my chest while our son slept peacefully in his crib, unaware of the complicated emotions surrounding his arrival into the world. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I know you are, and I forgive you. But Sarah, we can't parent from a place of fear. William deserves parents who trust each other completely. How do we do that? How do we make sure this never happens again?" I held her tighter. "We practice radical honesty with each other, even when it's uncomfortable, even when we're scared. Radical honesty. No more protecting each other from difficult truths. No more making decisions alone that affect both of us. No more assuming we know what the other person can or can't handle." Sarah pulled back to look at me. "That sounds scary." "It is scary, but it's the only way I know to build the kind of trust our family needs." Over the following weeks, we practiced what we called radical honesty. When Sarah felt overwhelmed by breastfeeding challenges, she told me instead of suffering in silence. When I worried about providing financially for our family, I shared those fears instead of working longer hours without explanation. When we disagreed about William's sleep schedule, we talked through our different perspectives instead of quietly implementing our own approaches. It wasn't always comfortable. Honesty sometimes meant admitting fears that felt silly, or concerns that seemed selfish, but each difficult conversation built more trust between us. One evening in late March, After William had been particularly fussy all day, Sarah sat on our bed looking exhausted and defeated. "I don't think I'm very good at this," she said quietly. "At what?" "Being a mother. Today I couldn't figure out why he was crying. I fed him, changed him, tried to get him to nap, and nothing worked. I felt so frustrated that I had to put him in his crib and walk away for a few minutes." The old Sarah might have hidden this moment of struggle, not wanting me to think she couldn't handle motherhood. But this was radical honesty in practice. "You know what that makes you?" I said, sitting beside her on the bed. "A bad mother? A normal mother. Sarah, every parent has moments like that. The fact that you recognized you needed a break and took one safely, that makes you a good mother." "Really? Really? And the fact that you told me about it instead of pretending everything was perfect, that makes you a trustworthy partner." She leaned against my shoulder. "This is harder than I expected. All of it. Parenting, being honest about our struggles, rebuilding trust after what happened. But we're doing it," I said, kissing the top of her head. "Are we? Look around, Sarah. We have a healthy, beautiful son. We're talking through our challenges instead of hiding from them. We're supporting each other through the hardest and best time of our lives. Yeah, we're doing it." A few weeks later, on a warm April evening when William was finally sleeping longer stretches at night, I made dinner while Sarah gave the baby his bath. I could hear her talking to him from down the hall, telling him about his day, singing soft lullabies as she dried him off and dressed him in his pajamas. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. After Sarah put William down for the night, she found me in the living room with candles lit and 2 glasses of wine. "What's all this?" she asked, settling onto the couch beside me. "We need to talk about something." I saw the flash of fear cross her face, the old worry that important conversations meant bad news. "Nothing's wrong," I said quickly, "but there is something we need to discuss." "Okay." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small velvet box I'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the right moment. "Sarah Catherine Mitchell," I said, dropping to one knee beside the couch. "Will you marry me?" Her hands flew to her mouth. "Jake, I know this past year has been complicated. I know we've had to work through some difficult things, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to raise William together as husband and wife. I want to face whatever challenges come next as a married couple." I opened the box to reveal the emerald-cut diamond ring I'd chosen months earlier, when I thought our biggest challenge was getting pregnant. "I love you," I continued. "I love your kindness, your strength, your dedication to our family. I love how you sing to William when you think I'm not listening. I love how you make everything feel like home." Tears were streaming down her face now. "Most of all, I love how we've learned to be honest with each other, even when it's hard. I think that's going to serve us well in marriage." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, I'll marry you." She was crying and laughing at the same time. "Of course I'll marry you." I slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, and kissed her with 3 years of love and 6 months of forgiveness and a lifetime of hope for our future together. "I have one condition," Sarah said as we held each other on the couch. "What's that?" "No more secrets. Not about wedding planning. Not about anything. Deal. Radical honesty, remember? Radical honesty." We were married 3 months later in a small ceremony in Lincoln Park, with William sleeping peacefully in Sarah's arms, as we exchanged vows. We promised to love each other through good times and challenges, to communicate honestly even when it was difficult, and to build our family on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Danny served as my best man, and Sarah's sister Kate flew in from Portland to be her maid of honor. During her toast at our small reception, Kate said something that stuck with me. "Sometimes the most important thing you can give someone isn't protection from life's difficulties, but faith in their ability to handle whatever comes." As I write this story now, William is 2 years old, walking and talking and filling our house with laughter. Sarah is pregnant again. This time we found out together, celebrated together, and have shared every appointment and ultrasound from the very beginning. We're expecting a daughter in the fall. Looking back, I understand that Sarah's deception wasn't born of malice but of love and fear. She was trying to protect me from disappointment and herself from potential heartbreak. But what we learned is that real love isn't about protecting each other from life's challenges. It's about facing them together with honesty, trust, and unwavering support. The secret that nearly destroyed our relationship ultimately made it stronger. Not because keeping secrets is good, but because working through the aftermath taught us how to communicate, how to forgive, how to rebuild trust, and how to love each other not despite our flaws, but because of our commitment to grow beyond them. William will grow up in a home where honesty is valued over comfort, where difficult conversations are met with compassion instead of defensiveness, and where his parents love each other enough to do the hard work of building a marriage that can weather any storm. That impossible pregnancy led to an imperfect but beautiful life, and I wouldn't change a single part of our complicated journey to get here. If this story touched your heart, if you faced similar challenges in your relationships, or if you believe in the power of forgiveness and second chances, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences, or just let me know that you were here for this journey with us. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real-life dramas about love, relationships, family, and the complicated beauty of human connection, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Your support means everything and helps me continue sharing these important stories. Remember, we all make mistakes in love, but it's what we do next that defines us. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.